Thank you so much for the introduction. And I think there's probably no need for me to go for one more round introducing us and the speakers. It's probably more interesting if Melissa just jumps to her topic and you will hear from us one by one.
Sounds good. Thank you, Topi, and good morning, everyone. My name is Plath. I'm from the University of Helsinki, as has already been said, and I am the Una Futura project lead, and I will present today a little bit our experiences with Una Europa, as well as the kind of overall framework for the European University Alliances, which I think are quite useful in there we go. I think you should be seeing my screen now. Yes, which I think are quite useful in being able to really develop and increase the collaboration, the research, the education possibilities around One Health, as well as other research topics. So I will just get started. A little bit of background for the European University Alliances. First of all, this is a flagship initiative of the European Strategy for Universities, and you have the link where you can learn more about University Alliances. Which was initially kind of founded from a speech of Emmanuel Macron in 2017, which really was pushing European decision makers to create a network of universities across Europe that would really boost the opportunity for students to study abroad, increase the institutional collaboration between universities to make a sort of European campus where educational innovation, the quest for excellence, research innovation would be kind of the core of the collaboration. As a result of that speech, the European Council made a decision to create funding opportunities for the establishment of these European universities, which are primarily funded through Erasmus Plus funding. So the first call was in 2019, the second in 2020, and we now have had a third as well. So these first initiatives have already started, and the idea of the European University Initiative is that they are, as I said, establishing alliances between higher education institutions across Europe for the benefit of students, staff, and society. So we're focusing here not only on the education collaboration side and not only on the research side, but really bringing together these two aspects to serve all of our stakeholders within the university, also thinking about this kind of structural collaboration as one important element of this, but also seeing how we as universities and as alliances of universities can serve society at large. As I have already said, this is primarily implemented through Erasmus Plus funding, but there has also been supportive funding from Horizon Europe, national agencies, and other sources. So in some countries, Finland is not the case, but in some cases, in some countries, there are national agencies which are providing supportive funding as well. These alliances are expected to develop really long-term structural, strategic, and sustainable cooperation between the higher education institutions. This has consequences, for example, in how the alliances are really forming their collaboration. So in the case of Una Europa, there has been the establishment of a legal entity in Brussels that is the kind of serving as one way of developing this long-term collaboration, but also showcasing the partners' own commitment to making this long-term collaboration. So this is a quite interesting, I think, aspect and perhaps a little bit new aspect for how the EU is really hoping these alliances will develop. What I have been telling people when I'm trying to explain what these alliances are about, and I think this is one of the key aspects of why these alliances have really come to the forefront of how the EU is wanting to structure this kind of long-term collaboration, is that there is a real need to improve the competitiveness of higher education institutions in Europe, and to promote this kind of European values and identity, which is not a framing that I necessarily love, but I think the idea here is that Europe understands that our higher education institutions need to be a bit more competitive, and the way of doing that is to really not only have this kind of structural collaboration around research, education, and societal impact, but also to find ways in which we can be innovative in the ways that we're working together. The aim is for there to be 60 European alliances involving about 500 higher education institutions, and at the moment there are about 50 alliances, so there is still room to grow for the alliances, and if you are interested in this, you should check out the Erasmus Plus funding program to see when these calls will come. Okay, so that's a bit the background information for what the European University Initiative is all about, from which Una-Europa has been established. So Una-Europa is one of these alliances. We are consisting of 11 universities from around Europe like with all of the alliances, to really find new ways to collaborate around education and research. We are guided by a 2030 strategy, which is aiming to have an inter-university and pan-European campus shaped by the university's central obligations around research and innovation, teaching and learning, and societal outreach. These are the list of our partners, and you can also see the dots on the map. So we are around Europe, and I think it's worth mentioning that there is from the European Commission, there is definitely the wish that in these alliances, they represent the kind of larger scope of Europe. So it should be kind of diverse and include institutions from the different regions around Europe. The way that we have come to where we are as an alliance. So in February 2019, the legal entity of Una-Europa was founded by 7 partner institutions. The University of Helsinki was joining a little bit later into this alliance, so that was in October. And the One Europe project began, again, funded by Erasmus Plus in December 2019. So if we think about Una-Europa as a big umbrella, there are projects under which the umbrella is kind of standing. So One Europe was the first really engine project under Una-Europa. And Una Futura, which I'll talk about in more detail, is the second one. In January 2021, Una Resin began, and that was funded under Horizon 2020, focusing on really the research and innovation side of the alliance. Elina will tell a little bit more about that. In 2022, we had new institutions joining Una-Europa, so University of Leiden, University College Dublin, and University of Zurich. And then in December of 2022, Una Futura began, again, funded by Erasmus Plus and the kind of second engine project under Una-Europa. In March, we launched our 2030 strategy, and now we are sort of in the middle of Una Futura and in the middle of really trying to implement the aims and the activities that will lead us to accomplishing our our strategic goals as outlined in the 2030 strategy. Maybe a few pilot programs which are worth mentioning. You can read them there, so I won't read them all, but we have really been working towards joint programs. So this is from a doctoral program in cultural heritage, but also joint bachelor's programs in European studies, and also now looking towards sustainability. We have been active in developing lifelong learning certificates, but then also micro-credential programs as the micro-credential program in sustainability, and building MOOCs that can serve a much wider audience, such as the AI in Society MOOC. So these are a few of the pilot programs which we started in One Europe, and which will, or many of them started in One Europe, but we will continue in Una Futura. I think this is not worth going into too much depth, but we are setting some values which really drive the way that we are working as an alliance. So this is about diversity and human dignity, academic freedom, and individual well-being. Which I think are also somewhat reflected in not only our strategy, but in some of our other thematic areas in which we are working. I also won't maybe say too much about the strategy, but as you can see here, we have these kind of three main pillars, which are very much in line with the pillars that we as universities aim to fulfill, so research, education, and society. Alongside that, we have some institutional drivers that are impacting these pillars, such as acting globally. So although this is a European alliance, we also understand that we fit into a global society and are thinking about the ways in which our alliance can act globally in a responsible way and in line with our values. A few of our aims, and I think some of the kind of key aims of Una Futura, is this sort of seamless mobility. So really finding ways to have virtual and blended exchange models, as well as more traditional mobility options. Mobility is one of the key aspects of this Una Futura program, and the way the activities that we are implementing. So this is a key one. Joint, flexible, and innovative education. So really providing high quality educational portfolio, which covers all levels of higher education, as well as lifelong learning, and engaging in a broad community of researchers. So creating various opportunities for academic collaboration. We have chosen to focus our work into 6 focus areas, which are led by self-steering committees, which gather researchers from diverse disciplines to really foster the academic collaboration in these focus areas, and to jointly design education and research collaboration focused in these focus areas. So our 6 focus areas are cultural heritage, data science and AI, Europe and the world, One Health, sustainability, and future materials. For One Health, I think it's kind of a nice story about how we came to choose One Health as one of these main focus areas. And Topi can surely tell the story better than I. But this was really a bottom-up initiative from researchers in the partner institutions that identified One Health as an important area for collaboration between the institutions, where there was something, some real added value in collaborating together. And because of this kind of bottom-up collaboration between the researchers and the community itself, this was raised as one of the key focus areas for Una Futura and the Una Europa Alliance altogether. in order to implement these focus areas, so one of the kind of main tasks of the self-steering committees in Una Futura is to develop a strategy, an action plan for the Una Futura project, so for the next 4 years, about the types of activities that they will undertake in regard to especially this education, research, and societal impact. So these could include, for example, summer schools, some sort of joint programs. It could include a MOOC. So there are many different ways in which the self-steering committees could develop their activities and their work for the next 4 years. But these are not something that the self-steering committees or the researchers, academics can do alone. So they are supported quite substantially by these clusters of professionals, which help to, or who help to plan, implement, and assure the quality of the activities. So clusters focus then on the operational areas that are needed to support these innovative collaborations which are taking place, and really act as the kind of backbone of this collaboration. So we have a number of clusters in Una Futura, and I've listed them here, such as teaching and learning, mobility, educational design and technology, quality assurance, legal affairs, student administration, doctoral training, research coordination. So these clusters are dealing with, for example, if you have a joint program, how do you assure the mobility of students? How do you assure the sort of legal aspects are taken care of, that students' degrees are recognized? How do you assure the quality of the educational program? So these are the types of things that they are working on with the self-steering committees to make sure that, you know, the activities that we are implementing are really able to legally and administratively, structurally able to be realized. We also have a number of research development clusters. I haven't listed them all here because there are quite many. And these include things like infrastructures, research infrastructures. And so they are dealing more with the research side of things. I thought it would be worthwhile to somehow highlight what the University of Helsinki sees as the role of Unaropa in our own strategic development, because one of the things that is really important for us as an institution is that Unaropa is not something sort of separate to what we are doing, and that it doesn't necessarily require significant new activities, but that Unaropa is one of the tools that we can use for implementing our own strategic goals and for really improving and developing the activities that we're already interested in doing. So for us, Unaropa is a tool for development, so we can further develop our teaching and learning, our internationalization, our collaborative research, our practices and processes, institutional practices and processes. It is a tool for growth. So it is a platform for personal growth, for the growth of our disciplines, for the growth of our impact. It is a tool for leveraging our joint European, global, and national efforts in education and research. And it is a community for experimenting. So it provides this tool for learning together, experimenting with new possibilities, trying new things. So this is how we see the kind of value of Unaropa for the University of Helsinki. And I think, you know, if your institutions are interested in being part of a university alliance, this would be a sort of important way of thinking about what these can do for your own institution. I see that I have only a couple minutes left and I have a lot of slides left. So this PowerPoint will be available to you later if that's useful for you, but I will only go over a few of the slides that I have left. I saw that one of the request was to show a little bit the structure of Una Futura. So I'm showing you this very vague diagram of how we work in Una Futura, and I don't expect you to understand it very much. But what I wanted to show you was that first of all, we have, kind of in the center of our activities, this thinking around what Una Europa can do for learners, for research, for society, and supporting these kind of key areas are thinking about universities' roles in the future, how students can be empowered to be active within both the alliance, but also within these different focus areas. How we can empower staff to be active within the alliance activities, and then what are some of the kind of needs that we have in order to achieve these goals. So this is the backbone. These are looking at things like how do we for example, recognize students when they're studying so that they can have their degrees easily, what's the word, approved. Let's go with that, recognized. Then at the same time, we have these transversal themes, which sort of are important to every aspect of what we're doing in the Alliance. So this is teaching and learning, mobility, diversity and inclusion, sustainability and climate, integration of research and education, and then this international dimension. The University of Helsinki is responsible for the teaching and learning and diversity and inclusion transversal themes. So that's why those are highlighted in particular there. I think I will move through these and let you have a look at them in more detail in your own time if you wish to do so. They are around some of these kind of key areas in which we're working. And then there's more information at our website, of course. And so you have the link there. And I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? I don't hear, I don't see, maybe they will come later. So I think we can move on to the next part of the topic.
Yeah, sorry, I don't remember the order by heart, but I guess you were informed that Stinne is ill, so I guess I will continue here about the research aspect. And nice to meet you, everyone. I just look for my slides. Can you see my screen? Let me see. Okay, yes. I have them as PDF. Can you see the PDF?
Yes, but we see like the whole app, but maybe that's okay.
Okay, let me see. Try again. Maybe I try the PowerPoint then. Oh, crap. Sorry. I haven't been using Zoom for a while.
That's fine.
Here we go. And then, yeah, it shows it pretty weirdly to me, but let me see. And then, oh, crap, sorry. This is...
For me, usually it works if you pick the reader mode. That's...
Yeah.
I mean, at the bottom when you have the
yeah, the problem is that I cannot get it to the presentation mode now.
But if you go to the I mean, at the bottom of the screen, there's the zooming slide, then one step left, that one, the book-like thing on the left of the screen. You were there.
Yeah, this one. Okay.
Yeah.
And now you can see the slides.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So I'm sorry for coughing. I'm Elina Tonteri. I'm a project manager of Una Resin project, and I was the lead writer of the Una Europa Research and Innovation Strategy. And I will enlighten a bit of what we did and how the project looked like, and share some lessons learned with you. I cannot see you or any hands, so if you have any questions there in between, just shout. So as Melissa presented, Una Europa was started with the Erasmus Plus funding and as a kind of education project and reflecting the European education area aims. But in Horizon 2020, Commission appointed funding for also to look at the research aspect of the alliances, and these were called SWAFTs, which means science with and for society, and this project was a lump sum project. I come back to that, and just quickly how it looked like. We had 4 work packages. First one looking at the kind of the big picture of how to do research collaboration, and the output of this one was this research and innovation strategy. Then second was looking at the research infrastructures and resourcing them. And the third one, strengthening the human capital. And the fourth one was for administration of the project. And then as transversal themes, we had open research, collaboration with non-academic sector and citizen science. So here you can see that it pretty much covers all the possible European research area aims. And you may not be that familiar with this European research area and European education area, but these are kind of the political aims for research and education in Europe. And interesting there is that these are areas that has been traditionally kind of under the national policies, and by these initiatives and by the European universities initiative, the Commission wants kind of to look at these together, but also create something on European level that has been traditionally done on national level. So there is very much a political aspect behind this. Well, in the project, we first did benchmarkings and mappings about like what there is. For example, in our work package, we screened all the research and innovation strategies of the universities, or the assumption was that the universities do have research and innovation strategies, but most of them actually do not. There might be like university level strategies that have like aspects of this in it, but often research is actually done in all this research planning is done on either unit level or even research group level. So actually we noticed pretty soon that there are not really strategies to screen, and what we did then was that we had like several workshops and so on, and actually the One Health self-steering committee and One Health focus area was very important group for us there, because it was very active and is very active, and we got really we had really good discussions with the academics from this area about like where should this research collaboration be going in Una Europa. Then we piloted several things which were not listed in Melissa's pilot list. But we, for example, made kind of the process for Horizon Pillar 2 matchmaking, and then a blueprint for common catalog of research infrastructure. So basically to start to look into how can we share what are the best practices when sharing research infrastructures. And then there were several webinar series on citizen science, team science, and open research that actually will be openly available in near future. And then kind of what we had also promised to the Commission is that we create strategies for this alliance on research and innovation collaboration in general, on sharing infrastructures, and on human capital. In the end, we ended up have one research and innovation strategy, and kind of looking into these other aspects under it, and then just have these additional documents. But all of these are available. I have added here the links. So, for example, if you are doing this kind of capacity building work in future, it's worth having a look what was done and how it was done, that maybe you don't need to do everything from the beginning and from the scratch again, because it's not quite straightforward. Yeah, so as I said, we did this benchmarkings and workshopping in the kind of the first half of the project, and I wanted to share with you some key outcomes from there, that how both our academics and our research professionals saw that what should be the kind of the strategic alliance there. Well, first of all, it was very obvious and clear, and of course, very much the voice of the Onehealth area, that what is the added value of Una-Europa is multi. You don't need to mind about the terminology here, but kind of multi or interdisciplinary research. So this is something that it takes a lot of time to kind of establish and grow and learn the kind of the thinking of the other disciplines. So this kind of long-term collaboration can actually really provide added value in this area. But there are a lot of issues, like for example, the career risk for early career researchers. So it was taken up that Una-Europa as an alliance could think about how this could be overcome. Then scaling excellence. Basically, in Una-Europa, all the universities are old, traditional, strong research universities. So kind of the excellence is maybe the number one strategic aim for these universities, and these universities see that impact, for example, come through excellence, and this is something that Una-Europa should also have as a strategic aim. And there, very importantly, is the work in focus areas. And there, we assume that what we hear from the academics is that they want full freedom, that kind of, they don't want any top-down processes or anything. But actually, what our researchers wanted was exactly like to have like clear processes, understanding what is expected from them, what is the frame they are working in. So actually it was very important, like for example, let's say setting up a summer school. Where do you get the support? Where do you get the funding? What are the conditions in Una-Europa? How to invite these whatever it's master students or doctoral students. So kind of to have these support frames clear and then work within them. And also this comes to funding, that there would be clear processes for the applying funding. And also still, as the academic freedom is very fundamental value in Una-Europa, to have some kind of structures for the bottom-up initiatives, because it's clear that there are quite limited resources to support like everything and everywhere. So first of all, the focus areas are already a structure, but also then to have some ways to hear the bottom-up initiatives and take them forward. Focus on early career researchers was very clear, although there was messages that to remember that it's always the kind of the sum up with the senior researchers working together with early career researchers, and to make sure that also the advanced career researchers have funding, for example, for like whatever, like joining the common conferences or something. And then how to actually do this. Data sharing, different digital tools came up a lot. And one great bottleneck bottleneck in research collaboration is the legal services in all European universities. The thing is that more collaboration there is, especially more collaboration with the third sector, non-academic collaborators, international collaboration. It always means more and more legal support needed, and agreements and so on. And this is something that we cannot really solve in Una Europa, but it's something that Una Europa and this kind of collaboration kind of cause that we have to keep in mind that that there are also these kind of limitations and how to overcome them. And then I could still pick from here that we wanted to highlight that all these universities think that they work globally. So we don't want to restrict this collaboration to Europe, but we see that the impact is global, and that means that also our collaboration is global. In the end, because there was also this overlapping process of Una Europa 2030 strategy, which was already defining the kind of the main strategic lines of Una Europa, we in the end decided to call the kind of the strategic areas in the research and innovation strategy as strategic areas of action. We wanted to show that what are those areas. So instead of saying that, for example, we will concentrate on studying some production animal feeding or some virus or something, kind of like research topics, we decided to think about how can we support our focus areas and kind of set these so that it's clear for our academics what this means, and support them in the best way. And that's why we had this framing of strategic areas of action. And so as said, the focus areas are our key there. The hubs means basically that we take the focus areas forward, that they would be even more established kind of in many ways, both inside of the universities, but also to kind of better communicate outside of Una Europa that what our focus areas are. and then the early career researchers and also the collaboration beyond academia. And then as I said, the being like big research universities means that there are also a lot of voices, and this is of course how it should be, but we couldn't left out this idea that we also need to make sure that we can engage researchers broadly. So we kind of had the thought that how can we both allow easy kind of access to the focus areas, that they wouldn't come like these exclusive clubs, and also as Melissa told that, for example, Onehealth focus area raised from bottom-up initiatives. So we want to hear also those bottom-up initiatives in future. And then the third part was research and data infrastructures. And here, kind of the two first are something that there is a bit of funding also in Una Futura, and this is something that can be done at the universities within things that are done already. But the research infrastructures part is something that currently we don't have funding to take that forward, and we need to think how that is done. There are some European initiatives that link to this, but kind of in a big picture, we don't have funding. And then how to see how we go forward. What we did was that throughout the process, we collected actions that, for example, if there was some suggestion from the academics that this should be done, we were thinking that what is the action behind, let's say that, for example, there should be the catalog to available for all the researchers about the One Health linked infrastructures. So we are currently working on a kind of roadmap. We have picked already. This is pretty much top down because it's the rectors discussing this. We are picking certain actions to start with and kind of prioritizing what Una-Europa should do first, and then start thinking that where can we get funding for that. So I have a few slides about the lessons learned. Of course, when we think about this kind of commission initiative capacity building project, it's very much top down. So basically, the aims come from, in this case, from the European Research Area aims. But what we actually learned during this process was that the bottom-up messages from our academic community meet the ERA aims really well. So actually, at some point, Commission has actually listened to the community, and it's not that bad. So these ERA aims actually make sense also for the kind of the everyday research and doctoral education work. Well, then, of course, the question that raises all the time is that the academics already have their research networks, and if we think the best of the best, they either compete with each others or already collaborate. And then, of course, networking also takes time from the kind of everyday teaching and whatever, searching for funding and so on. So kind of we were asked, and also we needed to do this sense making, that what is special about Una-Europa? Why should we support this over other networks, also on a university level? And here maybe the key answers were was the long-term collaboration, so that there would be kind of we are not only looking at a few years ahead, but we are looking 10 years ahead. So then we have an opportunity to build actually these support structures and also especially the interdisciplinary environment there. Then, of course, this is a bit in conflict with this project-based development. As Commission is funding these alliances project by project, that means that we have to be very careful with that if we are aiming at something long term, or if we are just following the project plan and fulfilling the tasks, and this is definitely a problem in this kind of collaboration, and important if you are ever planning this kind of project also to consider. Then, of course, the expectations from the Commission for these projects are quite big. And to get money in the proposals, one wants to mention all the possible aspects, like all the ERA aims, to show that we are committed and we are kind of entitled to have this money. But at the same time, it causes that these are really scattered and because still the money is very little and there is very little resources. So in future, it would be ideal if we could, now we have the strategy, so now we would like to concentrate on those things that are most important for us. And we want to give this message to the Commission that this is the way to the excellence, not that everyone does everything all the time. And also that the ecosystem building, it's not that now we have all the third sector collaborations and business collaboration and so, but it actually takes a lot of time, and it often bases on individuals knowing individuals. So this is not something that can be done quickly artificially, but of course there are certain lessons learned and structures that we can boost this with, but it's not super easy. Also with excellence, it doesn't, Commission talks a lot about excellence, but excellence is also something that doesn't just happen. It's something that grows over time and with good funding. Now we are in a situation that there is no future funding for this research collaboration, besides that we have these minor things in Una Futura, but otherwise there is a confusion in the air that why did Commission start this kind of process if there is no idea how to continue, but these discussions are ongoing, that how is this seen in future. Of course, as a research universities, we don't want that money to be away from the competitive research funding, which we still see is the key to excellence. But maybe interesting for you as Estonian institution is that there is funding available in widening funds also for these alliances. That, for example, there was this excellence initiative call last year that required like very high contribution from widening countries, the universities in widening countries. In Una Europa, we only have Jagiellonian University from Poland, so it was basically not enough. But this is something that you should be maybe aware of. Then a general message to the Commission from us has been that there should be more bottom-up funding instruments for multi or trans or interdisciplinary research, and I think this is especially important for One Health area, which is multidisciplinary also already by nature. Now there is, for example, Pillar 2 in Horizon Europe, but it's very top-down defined how the proposals should look like. So kind of we want the Commission to understand that the researchers actually have the best hunches of future, and they should trust that the research community knows what kind of interdisciplinary research there should be. And then this lump sum model, just a few words about that. It means that we don't need to report task by tasks, and we can kind of modify the plan on the way, but we just need to deliver those deliverables that we promise. We can then explain why we change the tasks. And it works really nicely for this kind of capacity building project where we learn all the time and plans change and people change and so on. But there you have to be very careful. First of all, to have some kind of plan and to make sure that the proposal is realistic from the beginning and make sense from the beginning. So could put good effort on the proposal preparation, and then to make sure that there is very good coordination on the project level, that it doesn't happen that one of the universities does all the work and the rest can kind of just slip from their tasks. So there are good and down and upsides on this. This I already talked about. Well, data sharing is a major issue, but it's still problematic that on which level this should be solved. That can the European alliances do this? Definitely not individual universities. Should it be done on European level? And I guess all these levels are important, but in one project with this kind of resources, it's impossible to solve this. But it's a major issue. And one thing we also learned here is that small and medium-sized research infrastructures are very important for universities. But on the European level, the focus is more on F3, these big infrastructures. So this is something that the our alliance wants to now kind of take forward and be loud about towards Commission that these are the infrastructures that really matter to the universities and need more support. Then, of course, now we have the strategy. Now it needs to be implemented, and the priorities need to be identified. And now we have started this discussion with the rectors. But of course, then we have to be kind of careful that to think in all positions that whose priorities are these? Is it like this Commission era aims, this alliance, certain universities, certain fields of science, individual researchers? Because of course there's also this bias that who's the loudest is heard. So this is interesting and not easy at all. And also that now we have the rectors discussing about the resources, but very few of them actually sit on the money. So we need to make sure that it's the right kind of level in the university administration thinking about this resourcing. Often the resourcing is actually in faculties. Then one learning was that diversity and inclusion are fundamental values for our alliance, and it's kind of easy to say that that of course this is something that it's there for granted, but actually it requires true effort. It's in this kind of complex project you often want to work with those who are kind of your friends, who's easiest to work with, and then even if you really want to make sure that there is diversity and everyone is heard, when you are busy and there's lots going on, you easily just talk to those who are closest to you in kind of think values and thinking. And so actually this is something that we do really need professionals to think about the diversity and inclusion, and also to advise us, and maybe as a message to you that also involve the professionals in this, in whatever you do. And then, yes, as said already, the resourcing of the project was really ridiculous compared to the aims, and this partly is because kind of you want to promise to the funder that you do a lot, but then in reality, the one you are not only fulfilling the tasks, but you are also need to do all the internal coordination and communication with Commission and national level. So it easily becomes the one person year becomes 2 or 3 or 5 or something. So to be careful with this and understanding what the resourcing actually means. And one thing we learned was that we used a lot of like workshop type of working and co-creation in Finland, and it's even at the University of Helsinki, it's already becoming kind of new normal, and there you don't really think so much about the hierarchies. But when I tried to take this to the Europa level, there was really first like even resistance to this, that we cannot do this, we cannot blend rectors and early career researchers and so on, and kind of I didn't even realize to take into consideration all the hierarchies. But in the end, once we push this through that we want to do this, the participants were really kind of into it, and they may be like in the beginning confusion, but it's still worth doing that the experiences were in the end very good. And then one more just quick slides about general good practices on this like big research collaboration and in these alliances. I just picked something from here. Well, the focus areas are very important because they create this kind of critical mass and this long-term collaboration. And then seed funding is, of course, very important tool, but there also, of course, the funding is often very small, but then kind of the process, all the evaluation and all that is maybe pretty heavy, that it means already a lot of working hours from the administration of the universities and the academics evaluating. So there is this kind of balance between these two that should be considered. And then the research professionals and support services are very important, and important to build this kind of long-term community there as well. So it's easy kind of to ask the others, how do you do this or that? And that means in the long term that we can also support our researchers better. And for example, now there's been already, like, for example, sharing funding opportunities in local funding opportunities in the partner universities, home countries, and so on. These kind of all things that raised from these networks of the research professionals. Yeah, the rest. Yeah, well, maybe I mention also the lobbying synergies that Una-Europa VZV means this legal entity of Una-Europa. And it's very important for us, kind of our link to the Commission to hear what is going to happen next and kind of lobby the policies as we wish. And then at the University of Helsinki, we had this good practice, which was Una Resin steering group. We had like dean level, mainly dean level, including all the Peltoniemi, who's active in also, I guess, in your network. Who were kind of advising throughout the project that what is important for our university, what should be the strategic choices for our university, and that was very helpful to hear from them that how should we take the strategy preparation forward. But yeah, that's all from my side, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any? Thank you very much, Elina.
And if you don't have any questions now, there was also my email on the slide, so you're welcome to contact me also afterwards.
I have one question from my side. Maybe some other will come. After listening to Melissa and your presentation, there is a lot of work involved, and I can imagine there's a lot of people involved as well. And you are mentioning like taking care about these elements like co-creation, co-design, involving people from different levels and different sides for creating the, let's say, final result. But how you take care of management of your team, like how you can assure that everything goes according to the plan? Because I can imagine there's like many people involved. So how does it look like from this side, from management side of your resources?
Well, first of all, it was thanks to any spirits in the world that it was lump sum project that we had a chance to also to kind of adjust the plan on the way. So that helped the management, especially as they started on a COVID time, that we needed to adjust many things. Yeah, it is an issue. I think on project level it's easier because, for example, it was more structured that we had that or this workshop and we had the focus areas and the self-steering committees, and it was easier to make a plan that we talked who we should be talking to and so on. But the more problematic was kind of the internal that for example, I was leading the work package 1 and the strategic preparation, but then there were also work packages 2 and 3 where for example, my colleagues from those work packages asked me to appoint someone from our university to support their work. So this was something that was not considered in the planning phase, that there's a lot of this kind of also this internal management. So yeah, maybe my advice would be, as I said before, is to kind of consider all these aspects when you think about the resourcing. But of course, you would always like to do more, and it's also this kind of the mental setting that kind of, when you're doing strategy, you would like to hear more and more voices, and you would like to include all of them. And but then comes the point that where you just have to sit down and throw everything together and write the paper. So I guess it's also that you have to understand that it's one project, you are a project manager, your main task is to implement the project and report it to the commission, and then of course to make it as good as possible and as useful as possible, but there is always more than you could do, so it's balance between all of these.
Thank you.
Maybe I could just add here quickly or shortly that in each of the partner institutions, they're organized a little bit differently, but basically we all have some kind of a core team which is charged with implementing this alliance, because it would be, I think, quite difficult to do this if you're somewhat scattered in different areas across the institutions, because as you saw, this is such a somehow fundamental project in how it addresses the different so many different elements of what the universities are doing, and it is requires a little bit of this kind of bird's eye view of the work of the university, and so you really need to be able to have a team that sits in a somewhat central kind of location within the institution to be able to do some of the things that Elina was now speaking about, you know, really reaching out to the different members of the internal university community and these types of things. So I think all of the institutions have some kind of a core alliance office that is sitting within a strategic position in the institution.
Yeah, and I could still add, I raised my hand there, to that in this kind of project, it's often a problem that the universities tend to hire a project manager only for the project, and it's maybe someone who comes from outside of the university and is maybe pretty junior, but in strategic and capacity building projects, it's very important to know how your university works and to know the people in your university. So it's very problematic that some of the universities actually had these people who didn't even know their own universities in this project. So actually this is very demanding work, and you need people with long experience and understanding on the national policies, European policies, universities' own policies. So that is very important aspect there.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions? I don't see, don't hear.
Then if not, may I interfere here briefly? So as was mentioned, Stinne was supposed to give the next talk about student empowerment. Unfortunately, Stinne is unpowered by a very strong flu. She can't join us today, but I think she's very good in her work. So I hope later on we can organize a separate event, maybe engaging more your local student leadership and people like that for that part. But so we have two sections left, Anna-Leena, Riitaoja about diversity, and then my own Onehealth section. Do we want to have like a 5-minute break, or do we just go on? I'm open for both options.
I would be up for the 5-minute break. I don't know.
Okay, then let's make 5 minutes break, and let's be back in 5 minutes and continue.
Great, thank you.
So I think we can continue after a short refreshing. So Topi, now it's the floor is yours.
Well, actually, I don't need the floor too much. So welcome back, and then I think we jump, as we did with the previous speakers, we jump directly to Anna-Leena, who I trust you will introduce yourself and your field, and then talk about diversity and inclusion in the Alliance.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, from my part as well. So I'm Anna-Leena Riitaoja, and I work as a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Educational Sciences. And my own research is related to diversity as well, and also inclusion. And then I'm kind of combining that also with the idea of like how we work with the diversity and in Una Europa, and what we have done before and what we are doing at the moment. And I have started as a chair of the Diversity Council at the beginning of this year, so I can also talk about the experiences personally from there, like what kind of discussions we have had about the opportunities and some of the challenges, etc. And then also like looking back, like based on what has been done during the previous project period. So I will share my screen in just a second. Let's see if it goes right way here. Okay, let's see. Do you see the correct one now, or is it the wrong one?
Good.
Oh no, it's
No longer.
Came back.
Yeah.
No,
I
it's
know.
fine.
Okay, all right, it's okay then. All right. Okay, so basically about the diversity in Una Europa and its mission. So how it's kind of taken into account. So diversity is mentioned there as one of the key values. So it's mentioned in the strategy, and it's written that Una Europa is driven by our shared values. So it's value-based alliance, and then diversity and human dignity, academic freedom, as was mentioned before, and individual well-being are sort of the central core values. So this is mentioned there. And then there is a section in the strategy that talks about institutional drivers. So again, there are a couple of mentions about the diversity, sort of mainstreaming diversity across our activities, and also to develop evidence-based actions to promote diversity for all. Then also there is an area about integration, and there is like institutional and cultural diversity of the partner universities, and also the global level, meaning that Una Europa will embed a global perspective in our actions or activities, and that's one of the areas as well. And then, as we know in the area of diversity, based on the research, but also like based on the alliance level collaboration and discussions with other alliances. So it's of course like question that how do we interpret diversity? What do we mean actually by it? And how it's then made as a systemic part of planning and action. So these are like two critical questions from our perspective about how we can make it successful. That does it really become part of the lived practices, or is it something that we mention in the strategies and policies, but something that we don't really kind of live with as part of the everyday actions into alliance, but also into individual universities. So here we see that the role of the Diversity Council in a kind of working in order to promote diversity and kind of making visible what it can be in our actions and activities is very, very central. And we had in October a meeting in Bologna. It was one of our activities, which is called like Una Europa Staff Week, which means that the people working in the administration from different universities can apply to this 5-day staff week, focusing on diversity. And so we had a representative from all our different universities there. And in addition, we had also 7 other alliances representing their diversity work in addition to Una Europa. And the learning from that was that there are very different understandings of diversity and very different ideas like what people have done before, depending, of course, like if diversity is something like one area of like work package or something where some universities are working on only, or if it's something that is cross-cutting all the actions. Then some universities, for example, might have like very strong global collaboration already before any alliance actions. So they, of course, are bringing in a different understanding of diversity there as well, and so on. So it means that really, if you look at the different strategies and policies across the alliances, you can have very different understanding of diversity. So it's important to define what do you mean by that for yourself and what is the reasoning behind of that. So in Una Europa, diversity and inclusion is one of the so-called transversal themes. So it's cross-cutting all our activities. And then there are 5 other transversal themes as well that I think have been introduced to you already, but this is one of us is diversity and inclusion. And that means basically that like it's cross-cutting, but then also that there are like typically like one university that is responsible for the transversal theme in a way called like a champion university. In our case, it's Helsinki for the diversity and inclusion. So they also have like a bigger role in kind of leading the process of making diversity or some of the other themes as cross-cutting ideas in our actions. And then if you think about the Diversity Council, who is responsible then also like working on this diversity and inclusion in like practice, like seeing like how it will become part of our actions. So Diversity Council is a permanent body of the UNA Europa. And the goal of the council is to promote equal and non-discriminating study and work environment for all members of the UNA Europa. And we are aiming for equity and social justice for all disadvantaged groups. So then how do we understand diversity ourselves? We have written this UNA Europa Vision and Action Plan for the Diversity Council or the transversal theme of the diversity and inclusion. So our kind of statement is that we believe that UNA Europa is a value-based alliance, as it said also in the strategy, and also that our actions are planned, conducted, and evaluated in light of diversity and inclusion. So it's going from the beginning to the end, and not just something we kind of add there afterwards or as part of the process, but something that is really taken into account throughout the processes. And there are 3 key areas or key objectives there that are what we mean by diversity. So one is difference. That means the acknowledgement of the differences that can be very different kinds: race, ethnicity, gender, social class, ability, sexuality, religion, age, and so on. And then also like how those are taken like into account in our like in our actions. Then equity, meaning providing fair access to opportunities, resources, and to power. And that means also that you need to pay attention to the systemic barriers that kind of influence on the access of people to different positions of power, and then have the vision of social justice here. And then inclusion is also that kind of that we create an environment in which all individuals are visible and feel valued and connected, and can also actively and meaningfully participate. So this is something also that means the kind of structural perspective to diversity, that it's about changing the structures so that everyone will have kind of a place there. So then if you look like what the previous actions by the Diversity Council have been during the previous project term. So there are 2 reports that have been done in order to map what is happening in UNA Europa universities. At that point, there were 8 universities involved, and now we are 11. But it's basically looking like where we are now at the moment, or in that moment that report was done. And there were like 4 areas of recommendations there based on what we know. So one was this strengthening of diversity data, meaning like how do we collect data about our students, about our staff members, and so on, and why do we do it or why we don't do it, and what do we use for, and is it something strategic that we think about that somehow the data can be used as part of the planning processes for making the university more diverse, more equal, etc., or if it is it more like accidental or something like ad hoc based thing or something that is not connected. Then there is another area which is about foregrounding diversity in research and innovation. Then education about the fostering a diverse and safe campus through equipping staff with diversity skills. And then also there were good practices about diversity from different universities. And then the report also included areas that Tinne was going to talk about. So there was this UNA student challenge focusing on diversity, and also this idea of how to make these international exchange periods affordable for students from different backgrounds, so that really, like, let's say if we have compulsory mobility as part of the degree programs, or there is like voluntary mobility, so is it really available for everyone in different life situations, different economic situations, etc., or having disabilities, etc.? Is it like appealing for people from all different backgrounds, so they can feel this is for me as well or not, and all these kind of questions. So there are also there is discussion about these ideas also in the report. So I will go this through very quickly, but if you want to ask more about these kind of things, then we can definitely go back later. So as I mentioned about this diversity data, so it's also like looking like why the data is collected and so on, and what do you think about what are kind of the gaps we know already that are necessary to point out in the diversity data. And also because alliances have universities of very different kinds, different countries, different contexts, it's important to understand this kind of contextual differences as well. And then also, like in very many cases, we collect data and we ask questions, but we mean different things by different terms, let's say, and then also like we might have a very different policy, how different kind of data collection is organized, etc. In some places, we might involve minoritized groups as part of the planning, like what kind of data we need to have in order to improve the situation. In some cases, not, etc. So that's basically like one of the areas, like how do we take into account all of these ideas if we want to use the data or kind of collect better data in a way that is influential and useful for the diversity work in the university and in the alliance. So about the diversity in research and innovation, so it's also said like if we want to make diversity real in this area, we need to put it as a strategic priority and kind of make it as part of the roadmap for the institution building and the thematic priority. And here was kind of the analysis of UNA Europa policy documents as part of this area, and also like there is a commitment to diversity. But then, like I said at the beginning, that is very crucial. What do we mean by diversity really? So what are the dimensions of the diversity? What is the meaning of diversity? So how to put that into action? So there are then different kind of suggestions related to governance, HR management, community evaluation, etc. So then I could say briefly about the education. That was one of the area. And again, we can here see that the varying meanings of diversity may confuse the shared goals and actions. So everyone is for diversity, but we mean different things with that. So it's difficult, it's important to crystallize what do we mean. And then also the development of educational resources is important in order to support the diversity of the staff, like diversity competencies of the staff. And there are again like different kind of recommendations about how to kind of take diversity better into account in education area, and kind of what kind of areas, what kind of ideas there can work in order to make the situation better. So there are a couple of areas here that I can mention. So existing diversity in the universities, so that we see like who we have already, people of diverse kinds, and we are kind of seeing like how we can also invite or people as part of that, kind of instead of talking something that is outside or we don't recognize it's our own working environment. And also like how do we include the target groups in the, let's say, educational material preparation processes, and what kind of diversity trainings we have different universities, and could they be used across the universities, for example? Do we see the intersectional approach or intersectionality, so that we can see like how different categories of ethnicity, gender, and class, for example, come together here, and so on. So these are kind of areas related to that. So then there were a couple of or several ideas of good practices also in the UNA universities in 5 areas, and that had been like analyzing different universities. And then also like recommendations, like how do we can make kind of diversity as integrated part. And there are recommendations, for example, involving the target groups in the design, implementation, and monitoring of the actions. Then the websites, accessibility, that we translate the websites and information so that there is access at least with one foreign language and so on, that people can get the information. And then develop the strategy for communication with different recipients and structures. Constant financial support so that we are not kind of having an issue that we need to always renew all, because this is what Elina was also saying, that project-based work always has the challenge about the continuity. So it's also true with the diversity work that if there is no, we don't know about the future, or there is no, we know that we get some money for a certain thing, but we don't know what's going to happen after. It's difficult to make long-term planning. And it's also typical, at least in Finland, based on the research, that all kind of equality and diversity work is based on the project money instead of sort of hard money. And that means that then it means easily that it's difficult to really make things as part of the structures. So it's good to kind of try to take that also into account, that what kind of ideas we can sort of plan in long term in order to make sure that these things are going to take place. And then recruiting, dedicating and trained staff. And there is the mentoring and training. And the evaluation, because we need to find out where we are going on. And then there are additional practices. So then about the ongoing actions. So what we have now published as part of the other transversal team's publication is our vision and action plan. And here we have basically first kind of, we have kind of published again the definition of diversity, so that everyone would have a kind of similar kind of understanding, what do we mean by diversity? And that's part of the work to clarify the meaning there. Then also there are critical trends that we have recognized and that we want to also kind of see that are important to take into account. So one of them is related to this awareness of the historical and social processes that have produced inequalities and exclusion, both globally and locally, so that we are not operating with diversity work in some kind of social vacuum, but it's always we are working in a context or several contexts in different countries, and we all have our histories, etc., that influence where we are now. So it's important to kind of recognize that as well, because it's part of our lived social reality and part of the institutional reality as well. So then also like recognizing the normativities that create the systemic institutional barriers, so that diversity and normativities are kind of related to each other, or normativities prevent the diversities to become real or visible. So then also to understand, because we are kind of top universities in Europe, so understand how to transform the elite structures into more inclusive policies, because we can see this as one of the challenges, that how it's kind of really being inclusive and open for the world around us. So then also the consequences of global ecological and social challenges to our universities, societies, and the planet, and the historical role of inequalities that undergird current challenges. So again, seeing that. Then also the dystopian global trends in the world at the moment, and the role of the universities to confront social upheaval. So if we are kind of value-based and we want to kind of really see diversity as important, also it means that we are kind of aware of and alert about what's happening in the world at the moment, and think about what our role as universities, as an alliance, is in this situation. So then about the current actions. So we have 6 different areas in our action plan. And here, like basically the main idea is that we want to take into account the work that has been done in the previous publication and all the results we have, and turn them as kind of practices, so that then we would have like diversity included as really like a cross-cutting theme as part of all our actions. So one is to kind of to bring the diversity in UNA governance structures by strengthening the role of the council and also seeing like how the diversity in the structures is really kind of promoted and taken into account in different kind of objectives or different kind of what I would say actions we have, but also in the evaluation process afterwards. So it's all kind of strategically planned so that it doesn't mean that the council itself is part of every single meeting, but our goals still will be taken into account in across the alliance. So then translating the results and recommendations of the previous reports into practices. So creating diversity-related quality criteria for UNA Europa activities, and also guidelines for working with diversity data, so that these are kind of something like the universities and the alliance can follow in their actions. Then also as to support that kind of diversity plans among all UNA Europa groups, which means that kind of the all groups based on these guidelines and diversity related quality criteria can think about where, like, how do they see the diversity, where they are now, where they would like to go, and what do they need in order to get there. So having this kind of thinking from their own part and kind of making it also useful and real for their own purposes. Then the communication is one, like how the council can be more visible in UNA communication all around. Then one is this contribution to UNA staff weeks and UNA talks. For example, one central area was that the staff week of this year, there are always different themes in different years. So this year focus was in diversity. So this was the idea to promote diversity across the whole alliance. Then also kind of supporting reciprocal cycles of communication concerning students and minoritized groups, so that there is really like a link between the students and the people working within UNA, and also like really like involving the minoritized groups as part of the processes, and also the fostering processes that promote safe participation. So then we also want to take into account the expanding knowledge related to diversity and inclusion. So the emerging social debates and that are going on in the world at the moment, taking that into account, what does it mean for us, and also the changing expectations of universities. And here we are also like planning a conference on decolonizing higher education as one of the arena that can bring together very different stakeholders, and we can discuss about things, and also contribution to the summer schools, so that diversity is also taken into account of the planning of the summer schools and part of the how as a kind of theme, but also as structures there, and also like throughout the process. And yes, this is basically what I could say at the moment about the diversity and inclusion. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Are there any questions? Seems that no.
Then we may have a chance at the end, very end, to share joint questions. But if, as for now, then I think I will take over to move to the last talk, being. Let me see if I can get shared. Do you see my slide properly now? Yeah. So then this will be about the One Health part in UNA Europa, telling like a case example of how the UNA Europa One Health focus area was built from scratch. And I hope to present this like in the lessons learned approach, so that it would be relevant for anyone trying to build an international One Health network across universities. My basic job is to be a One Health research coordinator at Helsinki University, our own One Health network. And what kind of qualifies for me for this talk is that the first 2 years, this One Health focus area was chaired from Helsinki by my boss, Olli Peltoniemi, and I have served as his left or right hand in most of the practical implementations of these issues. And just because I wasn't sure about the audience today, so I want to make sure we all know what One Health is. Probably most of you know, but kind of the classical old, I don't want to say old-fashioned, but the classical starting point is zoonosis, how disease is spread between humans and other animals. And for example, antimicrobial resistance, how these treatment-resistant pathogens migrate across species borders. But it can also seen more broadly think from the point of view that we and other animals share the same genes, the same good and bad microbes, the same basic physiology, and also we drink and breathe same air and water, live in the same environment. So it's beneficial to study these together, and many issues cannot be studied isolating into one species or one domain. But more recently, what I'm showing here is the joint definition by various United Nations organizations, which now more sees One Health as a project with a clear goal, saying that One Health is an integrated, unifying approach that aims to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, animals, and ecosystems, and tries to do this by mobilizing multiple sectors, disciplines, and communities to work together to solve these global issues. So hopefully this shows why this is an excellent area, focus area for this kind of university alliance, because first, we need really a huge, really broad domain of expertise, which no university alone can have. And also the problems we try to solve are global. Something can be done at national level, but if we want to feed the entire population without destroying the environment, anyone's health, we need to do it at an international level. And as you have heard in the previous talks, One Health is a little bit special case here. We were not one of the original 4 focus areas of Europa, but rather this is really a bottom-up effort. A handful of scientists across these universities thought in 2019 that One Health should be the 5th focus area, and they started by writing a seed funding application, which was then granted and covered the 2 first years. And at that time, it was quite informal. We tried to establish our group and run a few pilot activities. Then I guess our efforts were appreciated. We were promoted we got the status of a real equal focus area. Then we were really integrated into the Una community. We got all the support and started building more stable formats of activities. But still here, we were basically completely without funds, without monetary resources, and consequently also no responsibilities. And now we are living in a new world, in a third space from 2023, when we are fully funded focus area, but now also learn to live with that we are expected to deliver formal outputs and not just enjoying together. And yeah, this will be a less hard step after the 4 years of academic freedom. So the first stage, starting from the seed funding, granted to the all 8, at that time Una consisted of 8 universities. We got it in the spring 2020. All of the money was budgeted for traveling, to going around Europe, meeting together and planning. And as you know, those 2 very years, it was impossible to travel at all. So we did everything online, and I appreciate our achievement because none of these people knew each other beforehand. We got together through this project, 1 representative from each university. You can see their various fields here, like animal reproduction, infectious diseases, population, family medicine, bacteriology, immunology, so quite biological, but then also from Berlin and Paris, modern history, philosophy, ethics, anthropology. So this is not a systematic sampling of One Health at all, but illustrates the nature of these alliances, that you get kind of a random, each university picks their representatives, and then you have a team of people that will co-create something together. So we distributed ourselves into 4 work packages, 1 for education, 1 for research, basically research funding, 1 for engagement or knowledge dissemination, and 1 for managing the team. And I will give you 1 example of what each of these teams achieved. So firstly, in that year, many students had been granted, of course, normal Erasmus exchange years, but then sadly, we're not able to do what they had been applying for, or alternatively were sent abroad but had to sit alone there. So we wanted to do something for them. So we did like joint teaching units online, getting teachers from all Ona universities to teach one course, and then students also from all universities. And we got like from 10 to 50 students for each course. But the couple of lessons we learned here, firstly, was that it didn't work quite as expected. We were hoping the students would enjoy chatting with each other, learning about the different cultures of discussing and interacting with the teacher, but it seemingly was too abrupt. They could not relax and learn. The teachers said that the discussion sessions had been very, very silent, but the lectures were delivered and hopefully the students got the message. But also we faced the typical problems of international teaching collaboration, that simply the platform for student enrollment didn't exist. There was no way for teachers in Bologna to check whether someone claiming to be from Helsinki is actually a legitimate student, and vice versa, how to transfer back the credits. And this is actually something that Una is still working on after all these years. We don't have that highly needed system in place yet. Then for the research side, we went to support PhD students. We tried to apply for a so-called co-fund instrument to fund doctoral students. We submitted the application and we got very good evaluation for the science part and for like the job market point of view, that how we would increase the employability of the students and serve the European job market. But then the application failed for the more technical side, like for example, student selection. In this kind of international network, how do you have a fair student selection system across the network while maintaining the independence of each university and each PI to pick their own students? How do you deal with that? Or for example, salaries. We know that the salary levels across Europe for PhD students vary hugely, but if they are funded by the same project and same instrument, it should be equal. But you cannot end up with huge inequality within one institute between different students. And not to even mention IPR issues, like if you end up with something to be patented while studying in 8 different universities, which all have their different IPR regulations. These were all issues that just emerged, and we realized we have to solve them if we want to do something like this in the future. Then a dissemination project, which I think was more like a full success. We utilized the diversity of our network. So we had pure virologists, psychologists, modeling, mathematics people, and then general practitioners, as well as medics from huge hospitals across Europe, having talk and discuss with each other. I think if there's anything negative about this is that it would have served well like a much larger audience if we had managed to attract and communicate that we are doing something like this. And finally, we of course realized that we have to get to know each other, but people were against this kind of traditional approach that every university would give a talk and explain their One Health field. Instead, we decided to discuss what will One Health look in Europe in 2050, so 30 years ahead. And the idea was that we had 2 goals. Firstly, to really work on this question and understand how we should prepare for the future and what kind of work we should do, but also that by going through these discussions, we will learn to know each other. So instead of these formal PowerPoints, we would just discuss in different groups on different One Health related topics through half a year in 5-6 sessions, and through that process become familiar with each other. And I think that worked. So those were the 2 first years, and then finally 2022 we could meet in the real world. Alessandra, the chair at that point, invited us to Italy, and we were actually locked up for 3 days in a medieval bishop's castle. So it was not only the formal working sessions, but everything from breakfast to dinners, walks, everything. We were just together. And that really made a huge difference, because the projects we did after that are on a different scale than they were before. We got to know each other both academically and as persons. And really nowadays, when we are discussing the sustainability problems of traveling, I think I'm really a strong advocate of live meetings anyway. You can keep things running in an established organization by online meetings. But if you want to build a new team to work on a new project, I think live meetings are something that cannot be skipped. So one thing we established was the series of summer schools, partly because there was so much leftover travel money after the COVID years. So Edinburgh did a great 2-week challenge-based course. Then next year it was held in Leuven, but now unfortunately the funds were not at all like they were the year before. So the duration was reduced to half. And now in Helsinki, we are further cutting the number of people that can join and struggling with the problem that 5 days is really little for covering the entire field of One Health. So the student feedback has been good. They learn to network, they learn the different approaches, but the funding is an issue here. Then we have started to collaborate with the private sector as EU and our local universities encourage us to. We have made 2 big seminars with MSD. MSD is a huge player in the pharma market and one of those very few that are big in both animal and human medication. They have an existing One Health policy and they contacted us specifically to get one access point to a network of European universities. And then we concluded that the easiest way to start is to make seminars together where we have speakers and discussions and audience from both the academic and private sector. These have worked very smoothly, but they have also brought up the issue that in different universities, there are very different views of this industry collaboration. Some, to me, are surprisingly wary of this, very, very concerned about the possible consequences for our reputation as independent scientists. And this is like basically every month we have to go through that discussion that how exactly we deal with this. It may be rare for those who work in the medically oriented fields, but we have to then understand that those in the more social sciences may not be used to this kind of practice, and we have to discuss and go through it step by step. And then as the last slide of this round of activities, we are working on a MOOC, like One Health in Society, to integrate it into AI in the society MOOC, and then hopefully when we learn how to do it, to do our own One Health open courseware, which is a big joint effort. And then maybe the most praised of all our activities by now, I don't know if Elina is still here with us, but she was the key operator here, like Horizon Europe matchmaking. So Elina and her colleagues first screened through a huge number of Horizon calls, maybe some ended up with a list of some tens of them. Then it was discussed in the self-steering committee of One Health. We ended up voting 4 best collaborative calls. And then Elina and her colleagues brought people together around each of these topics and helped them get started. And then all 4 applications were indeed submitted. Unfortunately, I think we are close to concluding that none of them were funded. But again, each team was new to each other, working on a new topic. So I think it should be seen as a starting point and people can revise, and also we can build other projects from what was learned in that process of writing those. But now we have moved to...
Topi, there is background noise. I think is it coming from there? I'm not sure.
It's very quiet in this room where I'm sitting.
Okay.
Yeah, here it's
all right.
nothing.
I try to find, maybe it's something very different.
Like absolute, yeah, what kind of noise?
I don't hear any background noise.
Okay, well, in that case, there's something else. No problem, Topi, go ahead.
Yeah, but anyway, thanks for letting me know. And of course, it's helpful if everybody who is not speaking mutes. If it still continues, then it is me. But, well, anyway, so now we are in the Una Futura era. We are fully funded focus area. And it also shows in that we now have to have a mission to better understand, integrate, and act upon the complexity of health and its social and ecological determinants. And as a consortium of leading universities, propose a global, holistic, long-term approach to major health-related challenges. ultimately promoting the well-being of humans and animals. So really, really broad goals, which anyway translate into 3 specific projects because it's only a couple of years. Firstly, we try to continue the summer schools, and this is here like kind of as a safety net because we know we can do this. It's an established paradigm, so we know we will have something done when the years pass. But then our clearly most challenging project, the original idea was to have a professional or executive level master's program in One Health, like for One Health governmental officials and people like that, also in private companies, to do a master's when they are already working. But we were strongly advised to convert it into lifelong learning, to do smaller modules that people can take piece by piece. But anyway, this is a major collaborative effort with the EU related agencies like EFSA, DG Sant, and so forth. And finally, the most vague of all is this One Health literacy for citizen empowerment. We have some colleagues in Leiden and Dublin who have experience in working on health literacy, and we now try to extend that into One Health literacy for decision makers, the general public, scientists, companies, and so forth. So that was kind of the objective part of what we have been doing. Then one slide of my fully personal, fully subjective conclusions of what we are gaining from this and what individuals can gain at the University of Helsinki. So obviously the biggest thing is this huge learning. When you work in this kind of team of 11 universities and there are various organizations and scientists from different departments, you unavoidably learn hugely about science, education, management practices. But I think you only learn if you are involved. I guess majority of people in the University of Helsinki do not even know well what Una Europa is. So simply by attending an isolated event does not give you this, but getting involved then lets you really learn. Then it also sets a reference point. We have 11 universities working on One Health. It gives us a more objective perception of where we stand. What are the areas where we actually are quite okay, maybe even in a position to teach and lead, but also we notice that there are areas where we have to make effort to reach the level of the others. For example, I think Helsinki One Health, it was an earlier started network, so it's easy if you want to contact One Health researchers at Helsinki, it's quite easy to do. Not all of our collaborators have something similar in place. But on the other hand, for example, dealing with the EU funding, lobbying for calls, dealing with the offices, we can clearly see that those more centrally located universities who have been in the EU and its predecessors from the beginning, they have a totally different level of expertise in how to utilize that instrument. And we have learned a lot and we should learn more. And then, of course, like established scientists have their networks, but it's usually in their own field. So this is really a way to make connections more broadly. Then what I have perceived as challenges, some are very similar to what Elina and Melissa were mentioning. One is the scale of the project. It really makes information flow challenging. I know that in these various SSCs, we are solving problems about student enrollment or data management, legal funding issues that are also being discussed in those so-called clusters of professionals, but how to make the information flow, that there is no duplicate job and that the professionals are answering the problems that the academics are actually facing. Also, like Elina strongly pointed out, the resources are not proportional to the dreams. There's so many ideas what should be done. And although like 20 million may sound huge, but when you distribute it across 4 years, 11 universities, countless different projects, it's basically only a handful of people in each university that are funded, maybe some trips, but all the rest is done like as a side job for academics and professionals. Then motivating the academic members can be an issue, like both because of their attitude and the rewarding system. If you are expecting short-term goals like quick research papers, quick funding, this is really not the way to get there. also, if those are how you are evaluated, it's not motivating to join this kind of steering committees if your boss and your university does not recognize the importance of that kind of activity that hopefully will pay off after several years, but does not give you like an immediate grant or immediate publication. And like, again, was already mentioned, the differences in organization and culture can be big and surprising. I had a long experience as a scientist of international collaborations, and there, of course, different countries are different, but the basic idea of how research is conducted in life sciences, it's very similar, be you in Finland, Japan, or the US. So this has come as a surprise to me how different universities can be in their organizational and working cultures. And finally, what I have seen as like working well is bottom up. This is how scientists like to work. So basically all projects I showed to you that have been finalized properly have been done so that just a bunch of colleagues decided that they want to do something and then they did it. The idea that we discuss in a group what should be done and then try to allocate it to someone, establish a committee that nobody practically wants to join, that is usually not the way to deal with scientists, but really to encourage this bottom-up activity, letting people know that they are allowed and encouraged to do what they want to do, and then make them do it. It's the fruitful approach. And then finally, this is more a question than an answer. Balancing stability and renewability. In Europa, for example, we don't want this One Health SSC to become like linked to a single person, like an eternal president whose personal toy it is. So we decided to rotate the chair every 2 years and also to elect a co-chair that will then take the position of the chair in 2 years. So that guarantees some continuity, but also guarantees that that there is room for refreshing and renewing. But then as for the entire SSC, many universities also want to update their members every 2 years. And I personally feel that for this kind of organization, that's very fast. It's very diverse bunch of discussions and people and projects. And if you only join the monthly meetings, it takes a year or two to just start understanding what's going on. So yeah, this is one of the management questions, that how to balance the ability to renew, but also stability and continuity and transfer of information. So this last part, indeed, this was not any objective analysis. It's purely my personal comment on what we have been doing. And finally, I want to thank first and foremost 2 people here, Olli Peltoniemi, who chaired the organization for the first 2 years, and then Alessandra, the next chair, who was also giving important, crucial support during the first 2 years. As the former rector of international affairs, I think she was really the one who knew what this project is about and able to advise and guide us. So that was the talk part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Topi. In case we have any question, I just wanted to share my reflection that I think you have strong fundaments, because when you said that you had the budget dedicated just to travel around and meet each other, and then COVID came, I think this is quite a challenge, like how to manage in this situation, and the fact that the team survived and is still is lasting. It's like kind of superpower, and it brings the really fundamentals for good collaboration that you like very often in this kind of situations, like projects are finished or meet many difficulties, but I think to survive this time and still be able to do the project, it's very nice. So I feel very like inspired and enlightened by the whole meeting, and this part especially, like to see how things may work. So thank you very much. Do we have some questions from the audience?
I just briefly reply to you that thank you for those compliments, but it is, of course, the COVID was a two-edged sword for us. It caused problems, but of course it also really made the point that how important One Health is. So whenever we went to the Europa management and administration to make our case, it was quite nice to be there because it was so effortlessly understood why One Health is important and why this broad approach is needed. So as awful as the pandemic was and its horrible consequences, but it also served us to make the case.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I don't see any questions in the chat. I don't see any raised hands. So, okay, if we don't have any questions, or maybe somebody just wants to share something, it's still opportunity. The audience is speechless or overwhelmed with so many nice information. So thank you very much, the whole team from Helsinki, from University of Helsinki in Europa. It's I think it's really a big value for us to have partner like that, because I see, at least from my personal so far experience, that we can really learn a lot from you and be inspired by many ideas and solutions, and taking into consideration the whole project and the goals of the project. It's super nice to have opportunity to learn from so experienced teams and people. So once more, thank you very much for joining this event and preparing this event, and let's hope that there will be more opportunities to learn from each other, and especially for us to learn from what you have built so far. So
thank you so much for letting us communicate to you and joining and staying through this whole session. And I hope to meet many of you in the future in various occasions and communicate further. Thank you.